guys, Ron here, and a few months ago I made a video of the hypothetical Pokemon team for various anime protagonists like Goku, Naruto, Ed, and more. I'm a big fan of anime, so I will gladly make part 2. Here are the rules though. I'm not giving these characters Pokemon who represent other characters in their franchise. I won't give them Pokemon solely based on vague physical features, and the Pokemon will be based on the protagonist's abilities, achievements, and sometimes personality. There are so many options for each character, so there will be honorable mentions too. Keep in mind, I can't possibly go through every famous anime character in one video, so if you want part 3, you know what you gotta do, you gotta like and share. And make sure to check out part 1, cause I don't want to see any comments asking where's Deku, cause he's in part 1, you weebs. And of course there will be spoilers, so skip around if you must. Let's begin with the literal biggest phenomenon in Japan at the current time, Demon Slayer. Tanjiro's team wasn't too hard to come up with, although there isn't any literal demon Pokemon, so we're not going to give him any Pokemon to represent Nezuko. The following 6 fit perfectly anyways. Samurott is a literal Japanese swordsman and represents both his Nichiren blade and, most importantly, his iconic water-breathing form. The most powerful move takes the form of a water dragon, so Gyarados fits. Below it is Slurpuff, which perfectly represents Tanjiro's natural enhanced smell. Slurpuff has the best sense of smell in the Pokemon world. Keldeo, the young water swordsman, represents Tanjiro himself, and comes in his shiny form to match Tanjiro's magnificent color scheme. Every Demon Slayer needs a crow, well, except for Zenitsu, but Corviknight is kind of the perfect Pokemon to deliver missions and even transport Tanjiro. And finally, the godlike Volcarona and its signature fiery dance represents the Hinokami Kagura passed down by Tanjiro's father. This mixture of water and fire-breathing styles made Volcanion a pretty good honorable mention. Golisopod's liquidation manifests as a water sword in the anime, and Zangoose kinda fits the aesthetic, goals, and even vibes of Tanjiro's Demon Slayer mark. From modern phenomenon to relatively old-school classic, let's see the team of Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. This space cowboy needs a gunslinging Pokemon that can slither his way around and get info, like Inteleon. While not both spies, I'm sure they'd point fingers at each other and say bang. The special film over Inteleon's eyes can be a nod to Spike's bionic eye. Behind him is Celesteela, the literal bamboo spaceship Pokemon would represent the Bebop itself. And while not a literal swordfish, Latios would be a perfect high-speed Pokemon to ride on the back of. When speaking formally, Spike's fighting style, Jeet Kune Do, is the personal philosophy of Bruce Lee. This is no better showcased by the fighting style of Hitmonlee, the Kung Fu of Mian Chao, and the rapid strike Urshifu, a literal embodiment of Bruce Lee's flow like water quote, a philosophy heavily followed by Spike. Weavile and Zangoose honestly fit the vibe of the show and would be space cowboys in general. Metacham kinda fights like Spike, and Yamper could represent Ein. Now let's head on over to Kill la Kill and check out Ryuko Matoi's team. Now Ryuko has to have a Pokemon to represent her scissor blades, and no Pokemon is more perfect than Scissor itself. It's red too. Below it, I chose Grimmsnarl for very important reasons. Obviously, there's no life fiber Pokemon, but Grimmsnarl literally wears its hair as armor. These fibers boost its strength and defense. This is basically our version of Senketsu. Scrafty is a punk that wears its shedded skin like clothes. Regardless, I'm sure Ryuko would bond with one. And Mega Garchomp not only has the color scheme of Senketsu, the blades of Ryuko's scissors, and can fly like her Senketsu Shippu, but also has the blades and aesthetic of her Senketsu Senjin in the same exact locations. It's kinda perfect. Weavile is actually the first Pokemon I thought Ryuko would have based on personality, color scheme, and its sharp claws. And finally, Gladion's story with Silvally and the Aether Foundation is very similar to Ryuko's backstory. Seemingly failed experiments that became successful with the power of friendship, and that doesn't even scratch the surface of these connections. Ryuko and Silvally are technically both chimeras as well. Staraptor would have been a fine choice with its red streak and personality, Zoroark as well, but we're trying to stay away from giving these protagonist Pokemon solely based on their appearance. Incineroar fits the personality, and Zangoose once again fits Ryuko's revenge-filled agenda. Lurantis is another scissor blade Pokemon and is pretty like Ryuko. Leavanny literally creates clothes for other Pokemon. Bisharp cuts and leads. Obstagoon is a punk too, but the punkiest punk would be Toxtricity. I'm sure Ryuko would vibe with this Pokemon, but it has nothing to do with her powers and goals. Next is the protagonist of Code Geass, Lelouch v Britannia. Now Lelouch's Pokemon are also pretty intuitive if you ask me. From the bottom we have Metagross, debatably the smartest Pokemon, a nod to Lelouch's genius-level intellect. Malamar perfectly represents Lelouch's Geass, allowing him to control and manipulate the actions of others. This is literally Malamar's whole thing. Calyrex and Serperior are both royal Pokemon that can manipulate others. Calyrex can possess people, while Serperior can stop all opponents with its glare. Serperior is kind of a combo of many of Lelouch's traits. Empoleon fits with his royal aesthetic as well, especially as Zero, but Bisharp represents Zero completely, as a natural leader of a ragtag group of Pawniard. Not to mention the English names of Bisharp and Poniard are based on chess pieces, Lelouch's favorite pastime. Grumpig is also the Manipulate Pokemon, so it's a fine honorable mention. Alakazam fits into any genius's team. Tyrantrum is literally a tyrant. It has a cape and crown. Darkrai, especially with its legs, reminds me of Zero, and Hypno is here for obvious reasons. Watchog has hypnotic eyes as well, but isn't as badass as the Pokemon I gave Lelouch. And finally, Golurk is a perfect honorable mention for a mecha anime and a protector of the oppressed. Black Clover is next, and Asta gets a team of his own. We're going with pre-time skip Asta though, cause it's relatively new in the anime and some of you may not have caught up, and also cause there isn't any official render of Asta after the time skip, that I could find at least. From the right, we have Exploud, the loudest Pokemon around, goes to the loudest protagonist in this video. The possessed Doublade is a good representation of Asta's growing number of anti-magic swords, and the legendary swordsman itself, Zacian, fits perfectly with a character that literally relies on his sword. Mega Absol was the most unexpected but seriously appropriate pick. Not only is it a dark type accused of a disaster like Asta, but in its mega form gains wings like Asta, has a horned and half-black face like Black Asta, and for the coolest connection, Mega Absol has Magic Bounce, which is a sweet representation of Asta's anti-magic abilities. Gallade is a brave and valiant swordsman that can sense the opponents around him like Asta can with Ki, and Marshadow that possesses the shadows of legendary fighters follows Asta like Lieb does. There are tons of honorable mentions though. Spiritomb is a bunch of evil souls sealed in a rock, Zangoose is a normal type slasher, the same as Vigoroth, Sirfetch'd has a long sword, and Samurott has two of them. Lucario can sense aura, and Orbeetle can sense for quite a distance. Sigilyph is an ancient sentinel with Magic Card, and Hoopa has Magic Coat. Tauros could be the Black Bull's mascot, and finally Tailo is literally Narrow. But honestly, Sekir is kind of a separate character now, so it would be a waste of a slot when she can have her own team. Next is our adorable little Esper, Shigeo Kageyama, from Mob Psycho 100. Now Mob is basically the most powerful psychic ever, so Mewtwo would suit him well, but the whole point of the show is that Mob has to keep his emotions in check or else his powers will get out of control, so Esper would be the most likely party member. Not only does Rotz literally look and act like Mob, it evolves into the emotion Pokemon and eventually a powerful psychic. Mob isn't exactly a genius or anything, so Orbeetle is mostly here because its family represents a little nerd that grows up to be powerful. It has strong sensing capabilities as well, helping Mob and Reagan do their job finding spirits and espers. Gothitelle though can astral project. Mob is technically able to do this and enter the body and minds of others. And finally, while I didn't give him a dimple counterpart per se, a ghost type guardian like Golurk would follow Mob around. I mean, he exercises every day, so a ghost on his team would make sense. Not only that, Golurk is a Pokemon that goes out of control when its seal is broken, almost like Mob hitting 100%. Executor, Bronzong, or even Tapu Bulu wouldn't have been a bad choice considering Mob does have the power to promote plant growth. Uxie looks like Mob, but again, Mob has nothing to do with knowledge, so Mesprit technically makes more sense, kinda proving to Mob that he has emotions. Cosmog or Ghastly wouldn't be a bad dimple, maybe even Dust Noir, who guides souls to the afterlife. Claydol does work here too, it fits the anime's aesthetic. Sailor Moon herself is next. Usagi's team was very straightforward. The guardian of love and justice kinda needs a Cresselia. She fits the aesthetic, design, and goals of Sailor Moon. Clefable, which evolves from a moonstone and comes from space, was an immediate pick. Lopunny is a bunny, I mean Usagi literally means rabbit, and we had to pick the most feminine rabbit out there to place in her party. The Moonlit Umbreon is supposed to be a vague animal, it's not a literal fox or cat, but when I polled my followers, we determined that it would be the best representation for Luna, considering female Meowsticks are white, and Umbreon resembles Luna far more than Delcatty. Sweets are basically what Usagi loves the most, so she'd be best friends with her Slurpuff. And finally, crystals are very prominent iconography in this series, so Mega Diancie represents anything from Sailor Moon's crystal form, attacks and phrases, to items, locations, and Princess Serenity. Lunatone and Lunala would obviously make sense, but are a bit redundant. Ninetales, Mega Audino, Love Disc, Musharna, and Sylveon fit the aesthetic, and I'm sure Usagi loves these Pokemon. Now it's time for Jotaro. I'm actually only at part 2 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so it was tough coming up with the third JoJo's Pokemon team without encountering major plot spoilers, but I managed with the help of you guys, my brother, and my patron Mike. Some were incredibly obvious like Pangoro, who is literally based on the same visual punk stereotype as Jotaro, Machamp, who represents Jotaro's stand, Star Platinum, but with his... This is even more precisely represented by Rapid Strike Urshifu. A lot of people think Marshadow is a good representation of stands in general, considering it possesses the shadows of others and mimics their fighting moves. Jotaro's Marshadow can pop out of his shadow and start punching like Star Platinum. Considering Jotaro earned a professor's degree for the thesis on starfish that he wrote while he was in Morio, Starmie is a perfect nod to his marine biology career, and all the star motifs like the Joestar birthmark. And finally, Dialga represents his ultimate ability to stop time. Celebi wouldn't be a bad pick either. Ledion, the 5-star Pokemon, also learns Comet Punch, known as Consecutive Punch. Hitmonchan punches as well. Scrafty, Toxtricity, and Obstagoon are punks. Dragapult wouldn't be a terrible stand counterpart, and Giratina is the Platinum Pokemon, but that's a loose connection. Now, Bleach is the first show here that I haven't watched any episode of, but Ichigo is pretty iconic. His powers are relatively famous and my followers did help out, so I'm confident in almost all the choices we made. Dusknoir, the literal Soul Reaper of the Pokemon world, makes sense to have on any Shinigami's team. Ichigo and the Shinigami in general literally rely on their swords, so a literal ghost sword like Aegislash that drains and cuts souls is a no-brainer. Marowak in the front fits in with the entire motif of Bleach, honestly. It wears a bone helmet after all. It looks like a hollow. Yamask is also a good translation of Ichigo's Hollow Mask. While Mimikyu is appropriate regardless, I asked my followers which Pokemon would represent Kon the best. Out of Pyroar, Beware, Banette, and Mimikyu, they chose Mimikyu, cause it's a plush that mimics. And finally, a ton of people from the Bleach community simply think Arcanine would be the best Pokemon for Ichigo to personally have. It matches his aura and fiery spirit. Gengar and Chandelure would fit too. Kecleon would be invisible, and Samurott, Kartana, and Gallade would be appropriate swordsmen. People want Alchemy to be here since Ichigo's name can mean strawberry, but it's not a Pokemon that matches his vibe. It would be like giving him Beedrill because it's number 15 in the Pokedex. Now let's talk about Natsu from Fairy Tail. Since I've never watched the show, my sister helped me write this part, since she's a big Pokemon and Fairy Tail fan. This Fire Dragon Slayer obviously has a Charizard, maybe he nicknamed it Igneel. Reshiram is basically the strongest literal fire dragon in Pokemon, so it's a coveted party member. As an amalgamation of his best friend Happy and Natsu's rambunctiousness, we gave him a Torracat. Pyroar is there for similar reasons, although Fire Dragon's Roar, one of Natsu's signature moves, would be represented by Pyroar as well. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist would be the Fairy Tail equivalent of Fire Punch, and Emboar, who has a fire in his belly, would be one of Natsu's best mates. Its reckless ability would mesh well with Natsu. And finally, Blaziken would be a perfect partner with its Fire Dragon Claw, a foot-based move, so basically Blaze Kick. We wanted to give him actual blue cats like Luxray or Meowstic, but their personalities and powers have nothing to do with Happy or Natsu. Darmanitan's personality fits his team, and Komo-O's scaly aesthetic would emphasize Natsu's Dragon Force. And of course, I would love to make more of these and showcase the teams of protagonists like Senku, Shinra, Emma, and even rival characters like Sasuke and Bakugo. So like the video if you enjoyed and subscribe for more. Check the description for the t-shirts I made you guys, my Patreon where you can get cool rewards like discounts on merch and early video access, which you can do by clicking the join button as well. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram where I post my art, and I'll see you guys very soon.